That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about I Saw the TV Glow, the sophomore film directed by Jane Schoenbrun, which premiered at the 2024 Sundance Film Festival right before it also received a European premiere at the Berlin Film Festival. A24 is releasing it May 3rd, 2024.
We reviewed this director's first film.
We're all going to the World's Fair, which was also a Sundance premiere.
What is this film about? Two teenagers bond over their love of a supernatural TV show, but it is mysteriously canceled. That's a vague premise.
Not getting into the weeds at all with that, yeah.
What's your pull quote?
More distressing than sinister, Schoenbrun's lofty commingling of fantasy and identity, forged and then torn asunder by obsessive escapism, has profound tendencies, more pleasurable as a conversation piece than a cinematic experience.
Agreed. Mine. There are some interesting ideas, but I was ultimately left feeling like I would have rather watched The Pink Opaque, the television series within the film.
The Pink Opaque. The drinking game alert, you'll be drunk if you took a...
shot every time someone says The Pink Opaque. I didn't care for this one.
So I've seen it twice now. I saw it in Berlin, and it was the very last film out of however 60 some films I saw at that edition. And I was wondering if I was too tired to see it, but I knew that it would be more interesting to talk about. And watching it again, it's a film that I want to run away from because it evokes very strong feelings about being a teenager or a pre-adolescent at the same time that the characters are existing in this film.
Yeah, it's effective in recalling some memories that I probably would rather have not have recalled.
Right.
But, and I don't even think I'm going to try to recap the story because I feel like it's kind of confusing to me. But basically, there's a character named Owen, played by Justice Smith. Mm-hmm. And basically, when he was a teenager, he became obsessed with a TV show called The Pink Opaque, which could be maybe if you mix like Twin Peaks with Tales from the Crypt or something.
Or X-Files even, but
with Saved by the Bell.
Like R.L. Stein's Goosebumps.
Yeah. So when we see clips from and this is the 90s, the TV show, it's actually quite interesting. But he became obsessed with this show and was introduced to it by a slightly older person named Maddie. Mm-hmm. So like when he was a 7th grader, Maddie was a 9th grader.
Played by Brigette Lundy-Paine.
And the timing of everything is also all over the place, which I'll get to, but it would seem that because we see Owen as like a middle-aged man and he has a pretty mundane life, and it would seem that he believes, or Maddie believes, that they are actually characters in the Pink Opaque TV show and that they were banished to hell, which they're referring to as the Midnight Realm. Mm-hmm. So the life that Owen is leading is essentially him in the Midnight Realm. So he's like trapped in a nightmare. The end.
And I think they both have chosen to pursue a personality that is that they align with of the two main characters in the Pink Opaque. And that's why I think we see Owen in a dress at one point, because they're kind of reenacting what the two young women are doing in that show.
Well, and also I read that people think there's some trans messaging in the film.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Which I guess because we see Owen in a dress at a point.
No, there's more than that. Initially, when we first see Maddie, and she's reading that, and I'm saying she because the character she's playing, I presume, identifies as a cis woman, unlike the actor portraying Maddie. She's reading that episode guide, and she has I think, a very telling statement about how because it's voting day, isn't voting day exciting, like Colonial Day or something else, where the space is transformed into something else. And then within the Pink Opaque, there's all this talk about the two main characters meeting at sleepaway camp, which is, of course, a very, problematic but iconic film. horror film that depicted, surprise trans character.
Sure. I mean, okay, what did I like about the film? I think that there are a lot of really cool visuals, particularly with the pink opaque television show, which is given like a 90s
Like a
filter to it.
like a really bad WB show.
Yes, which I really enjoyed. And I think there are a lot of really interesting ideas. And I think it was very effective. I got emotional at one point when I because I'm a middle-aged man, and I think I had forgotten during my adolescence, like hating myself so much that I used to think, and like I fully believed, and I would like pray back then that like the life I was leading was a dream, and that I'm gonna wake up and be the person I really want to be. So I think that's how I felt about this story, and I think people could relate to it on that level. Whether you're trans or queer or whatever, just wanting to be something, like hoping that your reality is not actually your reality.
Yes, and it was calling kind of similar memories too, because I remember the first therapy session I ever had as a 20-something and relaying memories, and the only way that I could think to frame them was I felt at the time as a teenager like I was a character in a movie, and that was how I had to get about.
But I don't know that I didn't enjoy the film, and I certainly didn't enjoy it enough to sit in those feelings while sitting through this movie. So
Sure.
I think that's why I have a negative impression of it. There are some other things I like too, like there's sort of a moment where we hear two songs, which we can get to. What didn't I like? I've seen Justice Smith. He was in a Julianne Moore movie we reviewed. We reviewed him in the
with Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, and then the Magical Negroes movie. And I didn't really care for him in those two movies, and I didn't care for him in this movie either.
But
And some of it's not his fault.
he's playing a much different character. Like there's a character work going on here that is recognizable to me in the performance.
I also didn't care for the characterization of Maddie. And there's a point where Maddie has this long-ass dialogue at like the 2/3 point in the film.
Monologue.
A monologue. And that shit went on forever, and I don't think it was very well written. And many people got up and left the theater during this monologue.
Which is like there's only really like 20 minutes left for the movie left, you could stay. Yeah, I agree. There are some tedious elements, and I don't think Maddie smiles at all in this film. And I had the exact same thought rewatching it. There's a Mystery Science Theater treatment of a movie called Touch of Satan, and there's this actor in it named M.B. Melee. And there's a moment in that MST3K track with like, "Good night, creepy vacuous girl," and that is all I can think about Maddie in almost every frame of this movie.
Let me get through my notes. So it's an A24 film. I didn't watch the trailer yet, so I don't know how it's being marketed. I don't think it's a horror film. I guess I would call it like a psychodrama.
But that is a very much more exciting term.
But that makes it seem more interesting.
This is almost. There's, I think, some heavy Lynchian vibes. Even the pink opaque feels like somebody held a gun to David Lynch's head in the 90s and said, make a YA series. But
oh, interesting, because I think that the overall end result of this film feels like this could be like Ari Aster's first film that no one ever picked up. Like, it has that vibe to it.
Sure.
But, okay, the timing of the story. So we meet Owen when he's in 7th grade, and we're told it's 1996. And he's played by a young actor. And then we flash forward 2 years, and we jump to Justice Smith. And the kid playing the 7th grader reminded me of Moesha's brother.
Oh, yeah.
So, what was his name? No, I just forgot. The one who ran away, like, in the final season. Anyway, so that change... That 7th grader turning into Justice Smith, ain't no way. So that was super distracting to me. So then we jump forward 2 years. Then we jump forward 8 years. And then we jump forward 20 more years. And then in the very end, he's talking...
That'd be like 2026 at the end somewhere?
Maybe,
there?
and then he's like... Justice Smith's character, Owen, is also breaking the fourth wall and sort of narrating for himself.
Which gives it kind of a meta feel too, because it's like he is conveying this to us like it was a television series. Like, I never saw My So-Called Life with Claire Danes, which famously only had one season. But kind of that,
And Jordan Catalano.
but kind of that vibe of regurgitating. I'm Melissa or Clarissa explains it all for you kind of thing.
Okay, when we meet Maddie and Maddie says she's a freshman, I like that freshman looked 30 years old.
I mean,
But so does Justice Smith as like a ninth grader. Looks crazy to me too.
Maddie looks like she doesn't sleep, but I also remember meeting a lot of people like Maddie in high school that are super laser focused on one thing.
So
Dawson's Creek, some of those people.
when little seventh grade Owen, he knows about the pink opaque, but has never seen it because it's past his bedtime. We didn't even mention his mom is played by
Danielle Deadwyler.
who is.
I mean, you haven't seen Till.
No, I haven't.
Robbed of, at the very least, an Oscar nomination of that.
But I love her like on-screen presence, but she has nothing to do.
She doesn't, and I almost wonder if that's why they kept that 2 years later bit, because that's where we're introduced to the fact that she has cancer. Because they could have cut that.
We didn't even need
entirely.
that part, yeah, except that the mom dies from cancer.
I watched this movie 2 whole goddamn times and didn't realize that's Fred Durst as the dad.
Yeah, Justice Smith's dad is played by Fred Durst. I didn't recognize him either.
Well,
and we see him is like quite a bit.
Yeah, but it's usually from behind or from the sides because
That's true.
He's a figure that Owen is fearful of, that is detached from, that is estranged from completely emotionally. So we even when we see Fred Durst on the couch in that one scene watching television, nothing registers.
No, it didn't. But okay, so 7th grade Owen meets 9th grade Maddie, and Maddie's reading a book about the pink opaque. It's like an episode guide, and he's super interested, and he's telling her, well, I can't watch it because it's past my bedtime. And Maddie goes, well, you know what you need to do. And then we see that she told him to fake having a sleepover at a friend's house so he can go to her house and watch the show. So he does, and there begins this sort of connection these two have with watching the show, which he only watches at her house one time, and then we see for the next 2 years Maddie makes VHS copies of every episode and then gives it to him at school. But we learn that first time he goes to see the show that Maddie tells him, because she says, you can stay in the basement and go to sleep, because he told his mom he was at a sleepover, but you need to make sure you leave by dawn, because if you don't, like if my stepdad catches you, he'll break my nose again. So it's pretty clear that things at home for Maddie are also bad.
Yes, but
because Maddie wants to run away.
yes, but that also sets up immediately this kind of queer narrative of having to do things in secret, not even necessarily because of sexual development, but just because of feelings that your parents are just not, or anybody else is just not going to understand.
I thought a lot of the visuals for the pink opaque were creepy, and there's one set of there's these two characters who their hair is shaped like lunar moon, or lunar whatever.
Crescent shaped moon?
Crescent shaped, lunar crescent shaped, whatever. And they're wearing all white, and they reminded me of the Boulay brothers. But anyway.
Boulay brothers or Got Mick, would give me Got Mick a little bit.
Well, actually, the character singing that song at the bar reminded me of Got Mick, but...
Oh, and then the Mr. Melancholy, the Man in the Moon.
I thought Mr. Melancholy looked really cool.
Well, that's very A Trip to the Moon, the Méliès original silent film.
But anyway, I was going to say that Maddie... So Maddie asks Owen, can you leave with me? I want to run away. But Owen gets scared and then tells, a friend's mom, can you basically rat me out so my dad will ground me so I can't run away with this girl? And then it's right around that time that Owen's mom dies and Maddie goes missing. It's almost like she's been abducted. And then she's gone for 8 years and then returns mysteriously to then try to convince Owen that they're actually inside of the television show.
And she came back to save him.
And that's where things kind of went off the rails for me.
Well, it's almost a relief when Maddie disappears initially because it's clear that there's something that is not quite working for Owen.
Yeah.
It's almost actually kind of toxic, it seems like. So is why he runs away from her, but then he's left wondering forever.
I think what would have helped me deal with this story more is I wish there would have been 3 actors playing Owen. one as an adolescent, one as a young adult, and then one as a middle-aged man. Because I think just the transition from this entirely different human being to 2 years later, Justice Smith, to then him aging, I found that distracting, and I kind of wish that the film would have started with middle-aged Owen and him living this mundane life. But then we get all these clues that tell us that maybe there's something weird in the Matrix, and then we flash back to him as a kid and realize that he was obsessed with this creepy TV show, and then we build up to maybe his reality is actually like this TV show.
The reality is his TV show, but also how his memory of the reality of the TV show is his identity almost, because when he revisits it as an adult and sees when it's on streaming and realizes how cheesy it all is.
Yes, because we do see that he's like, oh, I as a middle-aged man, like I've watched the Pink Opaque now because it's on streaming. I kind of wish that would have been the beginning of the film, and that he hasn't thought about, like maybe he blocked out the Pink Opaque, and then now that it's available on streaming, all these memories are flooding back.
That's almost like Stephen King's Itch, kind of having to go back to Derry.
A highlight of it's interesting because when Maddie returns 8 years later, I didn't love the performance and the writing of that character, the dialogue. So the scene where Maddie's trying to explain to Owen that they may be in the TV show. They're sitting in a bar called the Double Lunch, which we had learned earlier in the film was a place inside the TV show. And there are other callbacks to the TV show too. But I thought that her explanation of all that was kind of tedious, but we get 2 songs. One song is like I Saw the TV Glow, which I thought was pretty eerie.
That's one of the that's called Claw Machine, the title track. But that's where we get the line about I Saw the TV.
I thought that was interesting, but then what I liked even more was the second song we hear.
Same.
Where this person with white face, white like clown white makeup, is like screaming a song, and I really liked that vibe.
I know, and that's where I think I get the most excited both times watching it, that the energy is going to change drastically, and it doesn't. Apparently, Schoenbrun approached all of their favorite bands, musical groups, and commissioned original music.
Maddie is going on my worst hair list, and that's for all 3 of her looks. When we first meet her, she's wearing this like emo wig that's just sitting too far forward. I hated it. Then when we see her 2 years later, she has like this cut, like this overly styled cut that's supposed to look like how when you're a teenager, try to make your hair blonde, it turns orange. You can tell they were going for that look, but it just looks too fussy and overdone.
I actually didn't mind how Maddie looked. I think out of the 3 looks, I thought that was Maddie's best look. I
didn't think it matched the character.
Sure.
Like it looks too done. Then her final look, after she's come back from I haven't explained it, but she apparently was buried alive and came back. She looks like she cut her own hair. Like it's all chopped up and crazy. I just hated all of it. Also, that actor reminded me of if you mix Anne Hathaway with Rose McGowan. Rose McGowan is a trigger for me, so I didn't like that. Okay, so the final episode. That's how Maddie's trying to explain to Owen, like, I know you know that like this reality is not real, because remember the final episode.
Because the final episode aired around the time that Maddie disappeared, suggesting that they're all intertwined.
And then we get a scene where like Owen's watching the final episode, and we see him like with his head stuck in the TV and his dad trying to get him out, and he's screaming that this is not his life or his family. And then that's when we get a sense that maybe he had blocked out the memory of thinking that like, I am not this person, Owen, and that maybe this is his version of hell, or his meaning like, because in the show, the characters are named Isabel and
Tara?
Yeah. So it would seem that maybe Owen is one of those female characters in the show, but in this version of hell, the Midnight Realm, that character's forced to be Owen. So they're not even in their correct body. So yeah, I mean, I guess I can see how people, like it's a trans allegory.
And then Maddie's big monologue, which she delivers very monotonously, where she basically does Kind of like what the main character does in Abbas Kiarostami's Taste of Cherry, looking for somebody to bury her alive. And that's
Yeah, she pays some person to bury her alive.
and then she, through that experience, ends up in the pink opaque.
Yeah. I did think a creepy scene towards the end was when Owen's saying that he revisited the pink opaque on streaming, and then we just get a glimpse of his face and the way the light's flickering and the head is spinning. I thought that was a really cool there are a lot of really cool visuals.
It was shot by Eric Yu, who is also recently director of photography on 1001.
Oh, and I did like that movie. So in the end, we see that middle-aged Owen is his mom and now dad have died. He lives in his childhood home. He used to work in a movie theater, but now he works at like a fun center, like a Dave and Buster's. And he's not even the manager. And
He's only responsible for replenishing the balls in the ball pits.
Let me finish the ending. So he's like at a birthday party at work, like the employees are supposed to sing happy birthday, and he freaks out. He starts screaming
That he's dying.
And he goes into the bathroom. He goes into the bathroom, cuts his chest open. His chest is glowing, and then he gets himself back together and comes back out and apologizes to everyone. And that's the end of the film.
For watching that this time gave me flashes of the end of Jean Dielman, where she kills the John.
Oh,
After like an endless amount of banal, repetitive tasks day in and day out, and just finally has a breakdown.
in addition to wishing that Owen were played by 3 different actors at 3 different periods of his life, I think the way Justice Smith was directed to play this character, he seems so pitiful and like he seems like a vulnerable adult to me. So at the point where he says, because he's talking to the audience, he's like, well, I learned how to like move on and I have a family of my own now. And it's like, I didn't believe that.
I don't believe it.
I don't believe that you could take care of yourself.
No, and I don't think we're supposed to believe that that is a true statement, because he says it without any expression on his face while he's being delivered a new flat screen TV, and ironically, it's the LG Life's Good logo. His life's not good.
I don't know. I think there are a lot of great ideas. I don't know. Some of it didn't connect with me. It almost felt like it was like this script came from like a story that was very personal, and then maybe wasn't fleshed out enough to have more appeal, like universal appeal.
Sure.
So I feel like I'm peeking in at someone's trauma, and it's like, well, that's it. Like, I mean, good for you, but it's not very interesting to me. Like,
yeah, as compared to something like Beau is Afraid, which I think we brought up afterwards.
Yeah.
But I still think that there is something there, and I enjoy being made uncomfortable in a way that is repellent. Because it's making me, both times it has made me try to think, like, what is bothering me so much about how I feel right now? So I do think that's good, and I think even healthy for people to experience. But
I think if people are interested, like from hearing about it or watching the trailer, they should go, but they should definitely go with people and be prepared to talk about it.
Yeah, it's definitely not, A24 I know has received criticism for mismarketing things, making people think that it's more than what it is. But I do definitely think this is worth watching. It's just not. There were a lot of people at the early screening that we were at, which I was surprised at because I think it's gotten a lot of hype. But it is. I don't think it's going to be what you're expecting.
What would you give I Saw the TV Glow?
3.
I didn't really care for this one. I'm going to give it 2.5 out of 5. Anything else?
No.
Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.